Alrighty, would you mind sharing your first name?
Gail.
And Gail, why did you get involved with bread?
Well, I think it was a combination of things. My parents have always been involved in a lot of charities, and then as they got older and retired, they got involved in things serving the underserved. My mother made Meals on Wheels, and both of them delivered it. And then my dad got involved in building homes for Habitat for Humanity when they lived in Lexington. And then when they moved up here, our church had bread going on. And my dad did become part of the bread network until he was older, too old.
And so what type of influence did that have on you when you were growing up?
What? Excuse me.
What type of influence did that have on you while you were growing up?
Well, I think I looked at equality or the lack thereof in a different way. My father was not ordained, but he worked for the American Baptist Churches of the USA for a number of years. And so I saw all different types of people, even though we lived in, I guess, an upper middle class suburb. It would probably be middle class, but in New Jersey or in Pennsylvania, it was upper middle class.
And why did you decide to stay involved with bread?
So I joined Brad pretty much when our church signed the thing to come in. And my minister at the time, we were having some trouble developing leadership, and she charged me to take over the team lead. There were 3 people that were trying to do it, and they didn't always get along. And one of them wasn't very organized, and one of them had had a stroke. And so she challenged me to get involved with that. And then I went to the training, which was in Florida that year, and it just blew me away. Why I've stayed is because I see successes, and I also see many, many things that still have to be accomplished.
Can you tell me about some of those successes that you've seen?
I was on the steering committee for the mental health, and we persuaded David Royer and the Adam H. board to give $1 million to establish Pathway Clubhouse, and also a ACT treatment teams that provide wraparound services for those who are mentally ill. I also was involved with the juvenile justice campaign in the courts and saw that we were able to get that started, and there's restorative justice circles, and they've expanded a whole diversion program there. And so we meet with Judge Gill about once a year now to monitor, and it's always exciting to hear their success and their lowering recidivism.
Absolutely. And do you have a memorable story or experience in particular where you were proud to be part of bread?
Yes, like I thought this one over, but this is what I've decided to go with. When we were trying to establish the court's restorative justice program, we were first working with the juvenile court, Judge Kim Brown. There's 2 Judge Kim Browns, one's with the juvenile and one's with Court of Common Pleas. So we were working with the juvenile judge. Well, I guess I should say we were trying to work with the juvenile judge because she didn't want anything to do with Brett. She would not meet with us, and the administrative assistant stopped returning calls and just said they're not going to schedule a meeting. We had found out that the court had commissioned a study of the juvenile justice program through the University of Cincinnati. and we talked to somebody at the University of Cincinnati. We had done a um, research meeting with him, and he said he couldn't release this without their approval because it was a contract. But he gave us a few little hints that it would be worth our while pursuing. We talked to him about would this be subject to a sunshine law request because the courts are a public entity and University of Cincinnati is a public entity. So he said, of course it would be. So we drew up um, the sunshine law request, and we sent it in, and we waited, and nothing happened. So we got impatient, or we decided it was time to do more than just mailing it in. So we had another sunshine law request, and we went down to the courts and we waited outside um, Judge Kim Brown's office. So she still wouldn't see us. Her administrative assistant wouldn't even come out to tell us why. So we were out with the administrative assistant, sort of gatekeeper to all of the juvenile court judges. And we told her we had a sunshine law request to file. And we had hoped to file it with the judge, but if she wouldn't take it, was there somebody else that needed to see this? So she checked around a little bit and found that they had a lawyer on staff whose only job was to deal with public, well, maybe not only, but one of her main jobs was to deal with sunshine law requests.
Wow.
So she came out and she said, "What's this?" And we explained it. She said, "I have never heard of you submitting a sunshine law request." And we explained to her the two entities involved, and she said, "Of course, that's subject to sunshine law request. I don't know why they didn't turn that over to you right away." And we explained that they were stalling, delaying, used lots of different tactics, denying that this was relevant. She said she would check into it and get back to us. So um, she went back and said she would get to the bottom of it. So she called us later and she had found it on some other desk, buried at the bottom of a whole bunch of things that we had been told as soon as they got through the other things, they would address this. But she found it down there and she called and said we would have it emailed to us that day. And we did. So that's one thing I'm really proud of, that we didn't give up and that we essentially won. And then the next year, um, Judge Brown was no longer the administrative judge. Judge Gill was, and she was more than happy to work with Brett. Now I understand the two of them are working together, and Judge Brown has dropped her opposition to this now that she's seen it work. But I know if we had been persistent, that report would have probably stayed piled on somebody's desk and they just would have put something else on top of it.
And do you remember what the results of that report were?
Oh, it was very critical of the juvenile court. So it recommended a whole bunch of reforms, which they did.
That's amazing. And how long now have you been involved with bread?
Oh, I would say maybe about 2006 was when I joined. So is that 15 years? 15 years.
Well, that
And
is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And so I have been the team leader at our church probably since about 2007 or 2008. I was able to take early retirement from a very stressful job in 2007. And shortly after that, my minister charged me. She said, I want you to pray about this. Well, you know, when that happens, you usually get convinced to do it.
That is all the questions I have for you. Was there anything else you wanted to share?
Well, right now, I'm involved. The Juvenile Justice Committee, after we finished that work, um, several years later, Brett decided to pivot and work in restorative justice practices in Columbus Public Schools. They asked everybody that had been on the Juvenile Justice Steering Committee to roll over on that committee, and two of us did, Noel Williams and myself. And then found, we recruited a couple other people. So there's four of us now that are working on restorative practices in the schools, and we've achieved some victories. We were visiting schools and things were going well before the pandemic started, but now it's like we're starting all over with that to find out what's been happening. I'm sure with the schools meeting virtually, they haven't been worried about this at all. But we have met with 5 of the school board members last week by Zoom, and all of them, all 5, have expressed support for restorative practices, and they want to have it in all the schools, not just with some schools. All the schools were given a choice of discipline method, and some, maybe about a third, if restorative practices. But the school board, 5 out of 7 members want it to be in all schools. We have reached out to the other school board members. One of them wants to meet with us. Her mother is in hospice, so she will meet with us in time. The other one, as far as I know, we have not heard back from. Cora would know that, but I'm sure if we'd heard back, um, she would have sent out an email asking for dates. She doesn't like Fred.
Well, that's amazing that you had so many school members commit to wanting to invest in restorative practice.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing because the person that does their scheduling told Cora just to send a list of dates that would work for us. And so she sent them over. And within a day or so, we got responses back from 5 of them. So last week we had one day where some of us, we took turns, but met with 3. And the other day we met with 2. So it was pretty strenuous by the time of the end of the day. So I was in on 4 of them. And it was very worthwhile.
That's amazing. Well,
So
congratulations on that.
thanks. So,
Uh,
and I know that things are going to happen in that area and in others, I'm sure.
yes, that is exciting.
Yes.
All
So,
right.
so you can stop recording.
Okay.